God directs your path.
Yeah.
It's unscripted. You
Absolutely.
don't know where, you might not know like a guy I was talking to today. He was like, I don't know the next 9 steps. I might know the next 2 steps. I want to know the next 9 steps, but I only know the next 2 steps.
Right.
But the Lord's going to direct each one of those,
Right.
and then he's going to bring you to.
And the remaining steps always
where
have
you
to
are.
do with being obedient in the first steps.
Amen. That's right. What's up, everybody? Welcome to an episode of Steadfast Men Unscripted. I'm your host, Matt Antis, and today I'll be interviewing a good friend of mine. His name is Zach Croushore. Let's welcome him to the show. So you're from Greensburg, PA?
Originally from Greensburg, PA.
Yeah, born and raised.
Born and raised.
Western
Hempfield area.
Huh?
Hempfield area high school.
Hempfield Area High School.
Started in private school. Actually.
Oh, really?
Yep. I went to a small private school, which I don't even know if they're still a school or not, Christian Fellowship Academy.
Mm-hmm.
So that was something that my family decided on whenever we were real young. I did, I believe, preschool through 5th grade there. And it's amazing. You go to a school that obviously is around your faith, and the amount of like bullying and other things that can happen in environments like that is like crazy.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, I was also pretty heavy as a kid.
Yeah.
Like I grew fast, but like my body put on weight in order for me to grow. And so when I was right around 4th, 5th grade is whenever I feel like I started getting a lot of like the bullying happening, just because of like, I looked like a nerd. I was an overweight kid. It was just, it was what it was.
Wow.
And my mom was like, I'm going to start letting him defend himself. So they put me in some Muay Thai classes. So I took some self-defense classes for about 2 years.
Wow.
And I also transitioned from private school to public school.
At what grade?
6th grade was my first year in public school. And that was a wild ride, because some of it continued because I was like the new kid, but then like there was also this level of like me developing this, not necessarily just self-defense, but like just developing my character through those years as well, and just figuring out like, I don't need to put up with this. Let me start taking care of myself. But it was good. I don't think I would have changed it.
And you did Muay Thai for a couple years?
Did Muay Thai for a couple years.
Is that different than karate, or is that the same?
I mean, I feel like it is.
Forgive me for my ignorance.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty ignorant to it too. It was the only one that I had ever participated in. I don't know much about karate or other, boxing or.
Do you have belts and stuff like that?
I mean, it was like a very informal class.
Okay.
There was like an instructor that had progressed in it, and he just offered like private classes.
Okay.
So it was never anything crazy. But it taught me a good bit of self-defense.
Stand up for yourself?
Oh yeah, for sure. Like, I'm not saying I'd be able to go whoop anybody, but if someone tried to pull something, I'm sure there's some things that would
come back. That's important.
Yeah.
Laura and I are talking about maybe getting the boys into like boxing or something like that. Like they have each other, they beat each other up with. But
I was gonna say
I don't know. I want to teach
taking
them
it out on each other.
Yeah, I want to teach them like some boxing or I don't know, formal wrestling technique or something like that. So
yeah.
Did you have any brothers or sisters growing up?
One brother, 2 sisters.
I know you had a brother. I thought you had
all younger.
Oh, you're the oldest?
I'm the oldest.
No way.
Yeah. My brother is 2 years younger than me.
Yeah.
My first sister is 3 years younger than me. And then my youngest sister, I guess she would be 5 years younger than me. So, yeah, I'm the oldest.
Are you close with them all?
I mean, I feel like I'm close with all of them.
Yeah.
Anytime we, connect and whatever, it's not like anything has really skipped a beat. I see some more than others. But I mean, everybody's growing up, doing their thing. You know what I mean? Starting families of their own. So
nice.
It looks a little different than whenever we were kids,
Mm-hmm.
but
So you went to public. So you went from private school into public school,
private school into public school.
and then you graduated from Hempfield High School.
Yep, graduated from Hempfield.
And when you were growing up, your parents were Christians, non-Christians.
Yes. Yep, they were Christians. They attended a small church in Greensburg. They were,
Yeah.
I think it was my dad's side of the family was like 4th, 5th generation in the church.
Mm-hmm.
And right around that time, when I was going through high school, I started attending another local non-denominational church that had more of obviously a youth program and different
Mm-hmm.
things like that. So
Mhm.
I got plugged into another church
Mhm.
as well in the area. And I think it was really whenever I started attending that more regularly, I felt the call of God on my life to
Mhm.
like support ministries. I
Mhm.
never really knew for, myself or for a fact that like I'd go be a pastor or I'd go be, an evangelist or anything like that. But
Mhm.
it was really where God started tugging on my heart. And it was like, okay, I want you to help with youth. I want you to do these certain things.
Mhm.
After I graduated high school, even while I was in high school, I started taking some Bible school classes. I think through Oral Roberts. They were just
Oh yeah.
correspondence classes through a local church it wasn't the same church, but it was another local church.
Uh huh.
And I took a couple classes, technically accredited, but I never ended up doing much with them.
Mhm.
And then when I graduated high school, the church that I was attending at the time, they introduced me to Andrew Womack Ministries and
Mhm.
Charis Bible College.
Mhm.
And I really prayed about it because at the time there was actually another church, I believe in Texas, or another ministry in Texas. I don't even remember. I don't even remember what the name of the ministry was, but
Mhm.
they had like a worship program and different things like that, like a Bible school.
Mhm.
And I was really praying, like, I feel like this is what I want to do.
Mhm.
And whenever I got introduced to Charis and Andrew Womack, it was kind of like a no-brainer. Like my
Mhm.
spirit was just like, this is what you need to do.
Mhm.
So I waited about a year after I graduated.
Mhm.
I started taking correspondence classes from Charis in
Mhm.
Colorado.
Mhm.
And we waited to move to Colorado until Christy and I got married.
Mhm.
So we got married in August 1st of 2015.
How old were you then?
20.
Oh wow, you got married young.
Yeah, I got married when I was 20.
Did Christy go to Hempfield?
Christy went to Greensburg, Salem. We met at the
Uh,
other church in Greensburg whenever I started attending there.
and you met in
So,
high school then?
yeah, we met when I was in high school. So,
High school sweethearts.
yeah,
Didn't know
yeah,
that.
different schools, but yeah.
Yeah.
So we got married. I had finished the first year of correspondence at Charis Bible College.
Mhm.
And in order to graduate from Charis Bible College, it's technically a 2-year program
Mhm.
for their actual degree, certificate, whatever it is that you walk away from that.
Mhm.
But they offer a 3rd year and even more years for different specific tracks.
Mhm.
So like if you wanted to go into worship, you wanted to go into business, you wanted to go into leadership, into ministry,
Mhm.
into government, different things like that.
Mhm.
So I had, in order to graduate, even from the 2nd year, you had to take a mandatory mission trip. And at the time, the mission trips were only available from the main campus in Colorado.
Mhm.
So we got married, like I said, August 1st, 2015. We moved to Colorado like a week after
You got married?
we got married.
Wow.
So we didn't really have a honeymoon up
That's
front. We
crazy.
just kind of did, like hung out around the area and did some things. We had to finish packing up what we needed to pack up.
Uh-huh.
And we moved to Colorado.
Huh.
And that was interesting because
Yeah.
neither one of us had,
Been away from home.
been away from home. We'd not, lived with other people outside of our families.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a really good, it was just a really good time to like both figure out, what God's doing with me attending the Bible school,
Mm-hmm.
with us in our marriage, teaching us to really rely on each other.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really cool. We moved out there like I said, a week after we got married. I think it was maybe August 10th is when we were pulling in.
Wow.
And school didn't start for me. Second year at Karis didn't start until after Labor Day weekend. So first weekend of September. So Christy had a full-time job already lined up down there. A school district in Colorado hired her full-time. So she was teaching fifth grade. And it was, I think it was fifth grade. See, the fifth grade or sixth
That's
grade.
awesome. Talk
I'm
about
sorry,
timing.
Christy. Right.
Talk about timing, moving out there.
Right.
She gets the job.
Well, it was crazy. So she had been in the education system for a while, and like around this area, and she was just subbing and subbing and subbing and doing things in the summer. And she would apply for full-time things and never really got it. And whenever, I knew that we were moving to Karis or moving to Colorado to go to Karis, she looked for a couple school districts out there and applied for some things. And there was this school district in Colorado hired her. They did one Skype or Zoom call with her.
That's it.
And then called her back and said, "You have the job. Can you start?"
Are you serious?
Yeah. So,
dude, I went through 6 rounds of interviews for a teaching job here.
Jobs.
In PA.
Apparently, you go to school in PA for education, you can get teaching jobs pretty easily. Apparently, outside of the state. I know multiple people that went to school for education in Pennsylvania and have moved out of state and have good teaching jobs. Now, whether or not they're still in those jobs, I have no idea.
Yeah.
But that's education as a whole. It is its own ballpark. But
that's crazy. So she got a job first, and then
she got a job first and pretty much started working immediately. So we moved out to Colorado Springs. The school district that she was working for was about a half an hour, 40 minutes east of Colorado Springs. And the Bible school is in Woodland Park, Colorado, which is up the mountain, like an hour the opposite direction. So we just tried to like find somewhere a little bit central so that way we could do what we needed to do. And so she started pretty much the following week that we got there. I think she actually had to take a week or two off, or they delayed her start from the school season because that school district actually only went to school 4 days a week. So they had a longer school year because they really tried to do 3-day weekends. And if a holiday ever fell on a Monday or a Friday, they would just adjust the 4 days. So that way you were still hitting your 4 days.
Okay.
So yeah, it was weird. So they start in like August and they run the whole way through May, and then you have June and July off, and then you start in August again.
Okay.
Don't really know why.
Yeah.
But that's just kind of what they did. I don't know if more school districts are like that in Colorado or what, but so we moved out there. She started pretty much right away. I was sitting at home pretty much just looking for a job, trying to figure out what I was going to do. I mean, we got to the point to where we were kind of living off of our saved money and money from our wedding. And we were just like, all right, God, you need to show up. If you called us here, that's great. But like, it's in your hands because I'm trying to do what I need to do to support my family.
And you felt called to go to Bible school.
And I felt called to be there. So, I mean, the worst thing that can happen is if you don't show up and make a way for this, then we just have to move.
Yeah.
I can't do this. And I started it. I had applied for several different positions, but the day school at Karis at the time, it probably is still like this, but it was 8 a.m. till noon. So it was a 4-hour window. That's 4 hours, right? And then they offered night school as well. And night school was from 6 to 10.
Okay.
So I started in day school, which the majority of the students that go through Karis are in their day school program. And a lot of students end up getting, part-time jobs as, prayer ministers for the ministry and different things like that. And we were living on our own, we had our own bills and stuff to pay. I had to support my family. I tried looking for a couple part-time jobs and to like adjust for, an evening shift or whatever to do that. And I couldn't really find anything for enough money to support the family. And so it got to the point to where I was just really praying about some things. And I really felt like the Lord was like, what do you want to do?
Mm-hmm.
What are you interested in? Why don't you start looking at things that you're interested in instead of things that you just have to do?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, cool. So I had been toying with it, and I hadn't really found anything part-time that was justifiable by any means. And nobody wanted to hire someone full-time in those weird shifts, or those, afternoon hours into the
Yeah.
evening. I mean, I'm sure I probably could have found something. It just wasn't really something that
Mm-hmm.
caught my eye.
Mm-hmm.
And so eventually I ended up finding an entry level IT position that happened to be at the same school district that Christy was working at.
Nice.
And I was like, okay, this is pretty cool, because up until, I had already started school, I was looking for jobs. She had already been working. And with me potentially, debating on whether or not I needed to switch to night school to make up for,
Mm-hmm.
finding a full-time job during the day,
Mm-hmm.
I was like, well, we're never going to see each other. I
Yeah.
have no idea how this is going to work.
Especially newly married too.
Right.
It's
So,
kind of an important time to
right. So it was
cling
really
together.
cool. So I applied for this entry level IT position at the school district.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't remember exactly how it happened, but I'm pretty sure I applied for it on like a Friday. And I'm almost positive that a Saturday or a Sunday, and my old boss doesn't remember this, but I'm almost positive it was a Saturday or a Sunday that he called me back and asked me to come in for an interview. And I was like, okay, that's cool. Now, before that, I had taken the steps to switch to night school.
Yeah.
So I went to the day school. I was talking with some of the instructors, and I just asked them straight up. And I said, here's where I'm at. Like, I obviously feel like I'm called to be here, but I am not seeing the provision for what I need to do.
Right.
And he immediately stopped me and he said, if you feel like you're called to be here, we offer the night school for people in situations like yours, where if you need a full-time job, but you're still here, like, we offer that so that way you can still attend. Like, we didn't need everybody to sacrifice their day lives to come do this. Obviously, it's still going to be a commitment to come to night school and do everything. You might not have all the same live instructors. A lot of them might be recorded classes or, different things like that. But at least at the time that I was going through Karis, that's what night school looked like.
Yeah.
But it was still an option. And he really encouraged me. He said, you are going to honor God more by taking care of your family that he has provided for you than you are by, debating whether or not you need to come to day school or night school. If God's still calling you here, coming to night school is still attending Karis Bible College. So I was like, you know what? You're right. So I emailed the dean and I was like, hey, here's some things that are going on. I need to pick up another job during day shift. I need to switch to night school. So I switched to night school. I applied for this job, and it was 2-3 days after I had switched to night school, if that, that I got the phone call back for the interview. I went out for the interview on a Monday, had the interview, left, got a phone call on Tuesday that told me I was hired, and I started that Wednesday.
Wow.
It was just like,
it's amazing.
Immediate provision.
Amazing how God works things out.
I know, right? And
all
it's amazing how when you're able to get out of your stubborn head in the way that you think it needs to be done, that provision is just there.
Yep.
So that was wild because now, even though our time was going to be a little bit separate and I wasn't going to be able to see Christy as much, we were able to ride to school together every day.
Oh, yeah?
So we carpooled to school together. I got to see her periodically throughout the day as I was running around inside the schools, fixing IT
putting out
stuff.
Fires.
Exactly, putting out fires. So, we'd get to eat lunch together every once in a while. Cool. And whatever. Like, it was a really cool experience. And then during somewhere in that, we adopted our dog Larry. So we were leaving him at home for big periods of time, but we got to carpool to work together. We'd go home, I'd drop her off, she'd take care of the dog and whatever else was going on in the evenings.
Uh-huh.
And I'd immediately get in my car and go up to Woodland Park and go to school from 6 to 10, come back. If I didn't have a lunch or if I didn't have a dinner, I'd have dinner at, 11:30, get a shower, go to bed, repeat.
And you did that whole cycle for about 2 years.
I did that cycle for about a year, just shy of a year. Yeah.
But talk about being steadfast. The whole purpose of this show is loyal, unwavering, committed.
Yeah,
That's impressive.
It was a very, very trying time.
And you were 20 years old.
20 years old, freshly married.
Yeah. Wow. Christy's older?
She's a little bit older. She's a few years older than me.
Yeah, I mean, you were committed though. You both were committed.
Yeah. And it's wild too to just see like how God has just divinely woven this path together, and how, one experience in one place just leads ultimately to the other things that he's called you to along life.
Wow. So then after you graduated school there, did you move back right away or no?
So yeah, we actually made the decision in probably halfway through the second year to move back to Pennsylvania whenever I had graduated. I had toyed with staying for the third year and going through like a leadership course, which was like a hybrid of their ministry class and a business class.
Okay.
But we basically talked about it, prayed about it, and we felt like it was time to come back. So we actually started making, I don't want to say making moves, but we started making plans to move back during that second year. And so in May of 2016, I believe, is when I graduated.
Okay.
And then by the end of that month, we had moved back to Pennsylvania.
Did they were they big on pastor, evangelist, or were they just kind of like a basic college?
So Charis is really word-based. It's very much like you get study guides with the courses and the different things that you do, but like your textbook is the Bible.
Okay.
And the instructors are all amazing. Like most of them have either been pastors at some point or are in some type of ministry somehow, some way. So it was an amazing time while we were there. But no, they didn't really focus on, whether you're a pastor or an evangelist or a teacher or whatever. Like obviously those are part of the fivefold ministry, but it was all meant to give you that solid foundation. And then the third year courses were more of the, like, if you feel called to worship, we have a worship track. If you feel called to ministry, we have a ministry track where you do more like church plant things.
Okay.
If you were called to like leadership or business, we had those tracks available to us to go through as the third year.
Okay.
So they really just, the first 2 years were all solid foundation.
Yeah.
Get your nose in the word and figure out what it is that God has for your life.
For you. Wow. Right. That's awesome.
Yeah. So it was super
I
cool.
Know that about them.
I would recommend Charis to anybody.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because like not a lot of people, at least in my immediate circles, think to, go there.
Yeah.
They're looking at other accredited places or different things like that.
And
I think Charis might be accredited now. Yeah. I don't think at the time it was. I think there were a couple specific colleges that would accept the degree that you got from them towards an accreditation at their, like if you furthered it at their Bible school. But to me, I wasn't looking for the credit. You know what I mean? I was diving into it because I wanted to know what God wanted me to do.
God had for you.
Right.
That's so awesome.
So it was.
How did you guys meet though again? So like you guys met though
in Christy?
Yeah, you met in a youth group.
Yeah, we met actually. So our church that we were going to in Greensburg, they put on a passion play every year. So just it's not like a musical. They actually do like an acting reenactment of the Passion of the Christ. Everything from Jesus being born the whole way to his crucifixion and his resurrection. So we met during one of those. I was volunteering to be in that. And she was volunteering to be in it as well. So we met during one of those passion play practices. And we were best friends for a number of years before we started dating. So, yeah.
So faith in God is like
Right.
what I was getting at was.
Right.
Nice. And so I feel like that's important and like noting, because a lot of steadfast men, a lot of Christian men. Well, actually, I take that back. Not all. Like I know a guy who I'm gonna have on the show. Him and his wife were not Christians when they met, and then they didn't come to Christ till 10 years into their marriage.
Yeah.
So I actually know a handful of people that are like that, but I was just curious at that. But you guys started out in the faith, interesting. So then whenever you were in youth group and stuff like that, did you ever have like a defining moment where you were like, all right, God, I'm going to give my life to you? Or were you just like raised?
Yeah. I mean, so, I don't fully remember it being at such a young age, but like, I believe I accepted Jesus and got saved when I was 3-4 years old.
Wow.
There's stories about me as a kid with other quote unquote supernatural things that happened whenever I was real young. Not a lot that I remember.
Yeah.
Sometimes you feel like the memories that you have might be just from the stories being told all the time. There are glimpses that I remember of just simple things. Like apparently when I was younger, I saw angels and I'd like talk to them. Like wasn't an imaginary friend. Like I'd be able to describe things. Like I knew things about people in the family or people who were close to our family that were dead, that I never met, but I knew them by name just by looking at a picture.
Wow.
Like just, I don't want to say weird things, but like all things that are like not normal.
Not normal, yeah.
Right. So
that's crazy.
I got real sick when I was like 5. I had like a real bad fever and it was like on and off for a couple days. And I remember being real sick. I don't remember a lot before being real sick. And I don't know to the rest of my family what that looked like to them. I remember being in it and how sick I felt at 5 years old. And I think it was just one of those things is like, a traumatic thing that you remember. I don't know what it looked like to, my parents or my family, but to me, like that really sucked whenever I was going through that, week of being sick. And I don't think it was anything major. Like I wasn't in the hospital, I don't think, but it was enough that like whenever I came out on the other end of that, I didn't remember any of the stuff that had happened before. Right.
Your mind was wiped.
Yeah. Right.
That's crazy.
Right. So it was, I don't know. It was interesting. But yeah, I mean, I don't know what got us on that track.
Yeah.
But,
sorry. I sidetracked us probably.
But yeah, so I got saved roughly when I was like 3-4 years old.
Okay.
And then we just kind of went through life as normal. I was going to the church that my parents were going to and went through like a confirmation course through them. It was a United Church of Christ denomination. And I grew up more or less in the church. They didn't have a big youth program. They didn't really have a whole lot. We attended church on Sundays. And I guess there was always something in me that knew that like, this is true and this is right. And this is what you need to do. And whenever I started getting involved in the youth program at the other church, I feel like that's really when I'd say I recommitted my life to the Lord. Whenever I was in middle school and I was going through a lot of that bullying and stuff that we were talking about, there was a time where like, as a kid, you don't really talk about it a lot, but I was real depressed. Like I didn't like myself. It was not good. To the point of like, I never think that I wanted to really take my life or anything like that, but it got to the point to where like they were thoughts that I had. Jeez. Like, why am I here? What good am I? What purpose do I serve? And right around that timing was whenever I started getting involved at the other church, going through that youth program. And I felt like every time that I'd go to youth group on Wednesdays, whatever message was being preached was like directly targeted at me, and whatever that thing was that was trying to come at my mind. And I really feel like during my, I guess, 8th, 9th grade years is whenever I really just gave my life back to the Lord and said, you know what, I know that you have something more for me than what this day to day looks like and all this other garbage. And that's when I really started getting plugged in. So, you know, I started volunteering more in youth. I became a youth leader, but I was a part of youth, not like an adult youth leader. I was like an attendee. And I'd go in early on Wednesdays and I'd help them set up the media, and I'd help them, you know, make sure that, you know, Pro Presenter was up and ready and the songs were imported. The songs were imported and the projectors and everything were on and we were ready for music. And, and then it was probably around 10th, 11th grade is whenever I started diving into the worship side of things. I was obviously interested in techie stuff, and I had taught myself enough that I was good at some of that, but I really felt like worship was something that I wanted to do. And I had taken piano lessons on and off since I was young, but I didn't really know piano. I mean, I'd go through the classes and they'd teach you how to read the music and they'd whatever. But for me, I've always like learned differently when it came to that. So like I'd sit there and I'd bear it and I'd figure out how to read the music and go through what I needed to learn for that lesson for the next week or whatever. But when I'd go home and practice it, I'd practice it and I would, my brain would memorize how to play it. And then I'd stop reading it. And so I never officially learned how to read music properly. Yeah. So I would then like get yelled at by my piano teachers because it was like, you know, the homework was to learn how to play this. That way, like when we flip the page and go to the next song, you can read it and play it and progress. And that's just not how my brain was working. It was like, okay, I like this tune. This is how you play it. And then I'd remember how to play it.
And then play it over and over again.
Exactly, right.
Dude, I did the same thing. My mom and dad put me in piano lessons, like probably 12, 13, somewhere in there. And I would go to the lady's house. I would do the lessons, but it was either like that or baseball. And I loved playing baseball. And then I would do the same thing. I would memorize the little tune. I'd do that. But when it came time to like, you have to learn to read this. Yeah. I like couldn't commit to reading the music. Right. And now looking back, I wish I would have, because I would love to be able to know how to play the piano. Sure. But so you do play the piano a little bit?
I do play the keys. Yep, I dabble.
Dabble a little bit.
So right around that time that I was telling you back in youth group, I tried out to be in the youth worship team, and I didn't really make it. Yeah. I was given the stereotypical.
Got the cut.
Yeah, I was given the stereotypical, just, you know, keep practicing a little bit more and, you know, maybe next year we can get you in. Yeah. And so I did. I mean, I was faithful to that. I started taking piano lessons again because it was something that I wanted to do. So it got me good enough to where I was actually at the time, I got to pick a couple elective classes in high school. Nice. And I picked a music theory class. And I took 2 years in music theory, and that helped me form chords and know how to do different inversions and know how to like what chord patterns go with what keys and different things. Interesting. Like that. So the 2 years of music theory gave me the knowledge to then retry out impromptu for the worship team. So the youth worship team, the girl who was currently the keys player in the worship team had something happen. I don't know if it was family related or what. And she was actually getting ready to step back from some of it. And they were like, hey, we really need a fill in. Would you be able to like try? Like, I know you tried out, you know, a year ago. Would you be willing to jump in? And I was like, yeah, sure. So I jumped in for like a practice or for like a one service. And they were like, not bad. Like, not great. Yeah. But like, like we made it work. We were a band together. So I started doing that. That's so awesome. I was on the worship team in youth for that church for a little bit. And then while I was still doing that, they actually had me start playing on Sundays too.
Nice.
So I was progressing and getting better and whatever. And
So you can obviously play good enough.
yeah,
then.
I mean,
okay. Well,
traditional church CCM music.
Yeah.
Contemporary
That's
Christian
cool. I
music.
didn't know you knew how to play the piano.
So yeah, I mean, it's fun. It's something that I still do occasionally. I had a keyboard that I actually just recently sewed to someone that I know that was in need of a keyboard.
Nice.
And at the time I didn't really know that he was in need of a keyboard. I just knew that he was interested in the specific model that I had.
Wow.
And it had just been sitting for a few years at this point. I mean, I've been actively involved in churches all my life, but I wasn't serving in worship anymore.
Yeah.
And it was like a really expensive keyboard to just be sitting at home collecting dust. So I felt like the Lord told me to sew it, and I did. And this dude was extremely appreciative.
I bet.
I
bet he was.
So I don't have the one that I loved, but I believe that when the time comes that I get back involved with that on a more regular basis, the Lord will provide, whatever it is I need at the time. And I mean, same thing with anything. Cars go out of date in I don't want to say in a couple of years, but new things come out on new models almost every year or every other year or whatever. So whatever that time frame is, I'm sure there'll be, a better one that I'm going to fall in love with at the time too. But I just recently started getting back involved with some of the worship stuff.
Nice.
So there's a local church closer to Washington, PA, that I do some keyboard stuff with once a month for a worship night. And then there's another church that's out in Latrobe that wants to start up something for a worship night once a month as well. So we're trying to figure out what days and nights we're going to do that. So pretty much just like a once a month type gig. I guess I'm a traveling worship band now with some of the other friends. So that's awesome. But no, it's really cool. It's a lot of fun. It really makes me reminisce on the times that I was in, in churches and the worship teams and stuff like that. So that's awesome.
Are you like a praise guy? Or are you a worship guy? Because I feel like there's, for whatever reason, I don't know why it's like this, but I feel like there's certain people, like guys that I've met in my life, where they really connect with like deep worship songs. I personally am like that. Like I really like worship songs. I like praise songs. I'm not like,
absolutely,
what I mean? But I'm just saying, like,
there's a reason that the Lord led every army with praise at the beginning. You know what I mean? Like there's a purpose for it. But I definitely...
Am I right in that? Is that a thing?
Oh, yeah,
so you've encountered the thing?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's people that love praise and there's people that love worship.
Yeah.
And I would definitely say that I'm more on the worship side.
Worship category. Yeah. Interesting.
And again, there's nothing wrong with both. Both of them are needed.
Bible talks about both.
Exactly. It's just, it's different to me because, like, obviously there's corporate worship. But I do kind of feel like when you're, in church and you're in like a good Bible believing church, your praise and worship should be primarily praise. I do believe that. There's time for worship in those environments.
Yeah.
But I believe, like, at least for me, and what the Lord, speaks to my heart, I feel like when I can get alone and have my worship times, there's, certain worship songs over praise songs that just hit me and get me more, I don't want to say in tune, but like it just gives you that time to like really worship God the way that you need to worship him. You know what I mean?
You connect with it more.
Right.
Yeah. I hear you. Yeah. Hence why I'm in that category as well.
Yeah.
So that's cool. So getting back to whenever you got out of Karis, though, you and Christy moved back to PA.
Moved back to PA.
She was a teacher.
Yep. Well, she went back to subbing.
Oh, she went back to subbing.
So at the time, doesn't matter if you had a year worth of experience in Colorado. Coming back to Pennsylvania, it's still nearly impossible to find a full-time teaching job in any public schools.
Yeah.
Obviously, you can get full-time jobs, but in the smaller school districts that are usually more sought after, you got to know people.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I know that life.
Yeah.
But God opened up a door for me, I believe.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's cool. So then you moved back. She got a job, or she started subbing,
She started subbing
and
again.
then you.
The experience that I had at the school district in Colorado
Mm-hmm.
opened up the door for me to apply for another IT job
Mm-hmm.
for another company in Greensburg that outsourced to school districts.
Mm-hmm.
So, in the tech industry, they call them MSPs, managed service providers,
Mm-hmm.
to where, instead of having an in-house IT team, or instead of whatever, paying, an in-house guy or whatever, you go to another company that provides those specific services.
Mm-hmm.
And then for, whatever the monthly recurring costs are, you just outsource that department to somebody else and they come in and act as your in-house team.
Okay.
So I had started with this company. They liked the experience that I had. And it was enough to get me in the door. It was still entry level for them. But I started getting involved with several school districts in the area, everywhere from, all of southwestern Pennsylvania. We were kind of supporting school districts all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
And I told them very upfront, I was like, hey, like, I am more of a people person, so please don't stick me in a remote desk behind, a computer screen and like not get to interact with people.
Uh-huh.
And they were like, all right, well, we do try to do a lot of things remotely. Like, we have a remote team and an on-site team, but like we can start you out on site and see what happens.
Yeah.
Well, they really liked how I did on-site stuff, and they liked, like, the customers, the schools were happy with me.
Yeah.
Just being more outgoing. Cause you get tech guys, and there's a lot of tech guys that aren't very personable. Right. So, I was that, unicorn. And so I was able to pick up on some account management, and I was able to, make sure that things were taken care of. And I think, diving into an environment like that, where you're not in the same place every day, forces you to rethink your work ethic.
Mm-hmm.
You either have a choice to say, I'm done at 3, 4, whatever, and walk away and leave whatever mess is there for the next guy that shows up.
Mm-hmm.
Or you bury your nose in it and you're like, okay, I need to take care of this because I care about the people that I work with. And I want to make sure that it's, in a good spot for whoever comes here next. Just really taking that responsibility.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of where I developed some of my workaholic mentality. Good or bad.
Yeah.
It was one of those things that I'm just like, you know what? I know for a fact, based on the schedule, that I'm the next person that's coming here. So I'm only hurting myself if I don't get this done or whatever. So, I just really focused on a lot of that. So I was with them for about 4.5 years. And things were great. We got re-involved with that same church in Greensburg.
Yeah.
Re-involved with the worship team. We were both youth leaders at the time. We started helping with the college group at the time. And in the midst of all of that, it was right around so this was 2016 to 2020 is whenever I was with them. But right around 2018, someone else that had attended Charis, not with me, but at the same time as I did.
Yeah.
He was also from the area, also from our church in Greensburg. And he moved back. He stayed the optional third year and went through a ministry track, and he had a church that he was ready to plant. Was that the guy you were just talking about in the beginning? He was the guy that we were talking about. I think it was before we were recording. But so I helped him. I really felt like the Lord told me to help him do what he needed to do. And I wasn't sure how involved things would be, but I was like, okay, Lord, like, this is what I feel like I need to do. I'm going to do it. That's in the simplest form. That I feel like that's what following the Lord is. Like, you can wait until you hear, this, thus saith the Lord. But at the same time, there is a lot of it that is just, if you feel led to do something that isn't a bad thing and is furthering the kingdom in some way, shape, or form, Why not?
Mm-hmm.
You don't know where that's going to lead.
God moves with the movers. He doesn't sit with the sitters. I forget who said that. Was it maybe Reinhard Bonnke or some way? And then I was literally just talking to a guy about that this morning. God moves with the movers. He doesn't sit with the sitters because he's in the same situation. And I just reminded him, Proverbs 3, 4, 5, 6. Proverbs 3 verses 4 through 6. Acknowledge him in all your ways and he'll direct your path.
Right.
And I just applies to my life so much, Yeah. You could sit in a corner and try to figure it out or wait for an answer, or you can get to work, put your hand to the plow, start doing some things and acknowledge God through all of it and then watch him direct your path. So that's cool. That's awesome.
Yeah. So, left our church that Christy had pretty much grown up in, and we helped, his name's also Matt. So
really?
We helped Pastor Matt set up his church in Latrobe, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And, I was involved in the youth there for a little bit. And after, I don't know, it was a few months that the church was up and running and things were really getting momentum. Very clearly, I started feeling like the Lord was telling me that I had helped with what I needed to help with, and that he was getting ready to transition me into something else. So we ended up having that conversation. I stepped back from some stuff. We ended up, again, going back to the other church that we were going to. No hard feelings. There was no problems. It was just the direction that the Lord was leading us. And we didn't get as involved this time because we still felt like there was a change that was coming, but we didn't know what. And there were some things that were, just a little frustrating with work. I mean, every employer has something that just you don't always agree with or you think should be done differently. And so there were just some things that I was going through, and I was just entertaining, looking at other jobs and whatever. And there was a patch where we had some things personally going on, and I needed to just kind of take a little trip to clear my mind on some things. And I went to visit a friend of mine in the state of Indiana. And so we're now, I helped him start this church in 2018. It was probably early 2019 whenever we went back to our other church.
Okay.
And then obviously COVID happened at the end of 2019 into the beginning of 2020. And so it was May, maybe a little before May. It was May 2020 whenever COVID really came out.
Like April, March. Well, for me, I just remember April, March.
Okay. So it must have been when
March, the world shut down.
Yeah, it was right before everything crazy happened.
Mid-March, the world shut down, I want to say.
Okay. So I don't know, maybe it must have been after. I don't remember.
When you moved to Indiana?
Well, when we moved to Indiana, yeah. I mean, it was later than that, but
okay.
I went to go visit a friend of mine in Indiana.
Yeah.
And I hadn't seen him in several years. The dude's like my brother.
Yeah.
And we just hadn't we talked regularly, but we didn't get to see each other for several years. He was in my wedding, and when we moved to Colorado, him and his girlfriend were obviously still back in the area, but then they ended up, I think we moved back from Colorado, and he ended up moving out to Indiana to work with his father-in-law and his uncle-in-law. I guess you don't commonly hear that, but so they had a business out in Indiana that they were going to work for.
Okay.
And so we just hadn't talked in several years.
Yeah.
So it was 2016 whenever we moved back. It was 2020, I guess, whenever I went to go visit him. So it had been longer, I guess, 4 or 5 years.
Okay.
That we hadn't really
seen each other.
So I went out and I was like, hey, let's hang out, do some stuff. And he invited me out, and I went out for, I think it was just an extended weekend. And for whatever reason, I just had a ton of peace while I was there. And it wasn't necessarily anything to do with, the reason why I went out there or anything. I just felt like there was something about it that I had peace with. And he was like, well, if you have a peace, why don't you just look for some jobs and see what's available? I mean, you're obviously unhappy with some things at work. I know you've been applying for some things. We've been talking about it. So why don't you just see what's out there?
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah. So I just casually was scrolling on Indeed looking for jobs. And I saw one that I was somewhat qualified for. It was for another managed service provider, but they
Okay.
did businesses instead of schools.
Okay.
I was like, that's interesting. Like, I'd like to learn how to do that and
Yeah.
what different technologies and stuff are out there and how you support a business differently than you support a school and
Mm-hmm.
things like that. So I applied for it, didn't hear anything back. And Indeed learns the jobs that you search for.
Mm-hmm.
So when I came back from that trip, I was still looking for jobs and I didn't realize it, but I had a mixture of things in Pennsylvania. Like it would give you for you
Yeah.
suggestions. And I didn't notice it at the time, but I was seeing things from Indiana and from Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't realize that.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw another job and I was like, you know what? This one looks cool. And I applied for it. Well, turns out it was a different listing for the same job position that I applied for while I was on my trip.
Yeah.
And I think it was maybe, I don't know, half an hour to an hour after I applied for it. The owner of that business called me and he was like, hey, you know, would you be interested in setting up an interview? And this was like 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night.
Okay.
So I was like, why are you calling me now about this?
Yeah.
But I was like, yeah, sure.
Uh-huh.
So I think it was in the next couple of days, I set up an interview with him and they ended up offering me a job. And I mean, Christy and I prayed about it and we were like, you know, if this is what you want us to do, let's take the leap and do what we need to do.
Mm-hmm.
So took the job. It wasn't until sometime later that I ended up finding out that I actually applied for the same job twice. They asked me, they were like, did you know that you did this? And
Really?
I was like, honestly, no, I had no idea.
Yeah. Just really wanted the job.
Yeah, right. I just really wanted
really liked the job.
So they started me off as like a lower level tech,
Okay.
Which is fair. When
Yeah.
you're transitioning from one place to another, you don't know what someone's fully capable of.
Yeah.
People lie on their resumes all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So we moved out to Indiana. I actually moved out first and was
What part of
living with a
Indiana?
friend. Lafayette, Indiana. So West Lafayette is where Purdue is
Okay. Oh,
for
okay.
college basketball.
Yep.
So the business was in West Lafayette
Mhm.
and we lived about 40, 50 minutes north of there in a town called Monticello. It
Okay.
was like a small lake town,
Okay.
which was actually really nice.
Yeah, I bet.
So my buddy lived on the lake.
Nice.
And
Lake life.
Yes. So we had a lot of lake life while we were out
One
there.
day. Uh-huh.
Completely changed my life. I had never known that. I mean,
Yeah. I'm a lake life guy.
yeah.
My wife loves the beach. I do love the beach too. But
Yeah.
I would
I
love
like the beach, but
I like the lake.
I can't go sit on the beach and do nothing.
Yeah.
For long periods of time. Like I
Mhm.
could do it for a day, or I
Mhm.
could do it for like if you wanted to go to the beach in the morning and just chill in the ocean, or
Yeah.
like in the afternoon. But like
All day.
I want to go, so
Mhm.
like let's go check out the boardwalk. Let's go see like what else can we do here.
Yeah.
That's still beachy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Of course.
So it was a wild ride moving to Indiana
Uh-huh.
too, because so we went out the 4th of July after I had accepted the position. We went out for the 4th of July. I didn't start until August of 2020
Mhm.
at that job. But we went out for 4th of July to have 4th of July with my friends and to look at houses. We had worked with a local real estate agent that my buddy had recommended,
Yeah.
and we were looking for things closer to where I was going to be working. And we really had no idea what Christy was going to do. We figured she'd get replugged back into school or whatever, the same way that happened, every other time we moved. And so we were working with this real estate agent. We probably had 5 or 6 houses that we were going to see over the course of that weekend. And on our drive out there, it's a 6.5 hour drive, 7-hour drive from where we are here in Pennsylvania to where that was in Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
On our way out there, he called us or texted us. Every single place that we wanted to see had either sold or went under contract on our way there. And we were like, okay, God, what are we supposed to do? Are we supposed to move out here or not?
Uh-huh.
And he was showing us stuff he was pulling, out of his back pocket.
Yeah.
He was like, he's like, I'm familiar with some of these areas that you want to look at, but he's like, I just don't think you're going to find what you want. And I mean, he was right. He was like, why don't we start looking up closer to where, your friend's at and where our office is.
Right.
And I was like, okay, like if I got to drive a little bit to work, it is what it is. I didn't want to have to drive close to an hour to work every day, but it was something I was open to. So we started looking, and we actually put an offer in on a house that was up there. It needed some work, so we didn't lowball. It was lower than asking,
Yeah.
but it needed some work, and they weren't willing to budge on it.
Mm-hmm.
So we were like, okay, well, we'll think about it. While we were there putting in an offer on that house, that real estate owner actually looked at Christy, and he's like, well, what do you do? And started talking to her about some stuff. And he's like, well, if you're looking for a job, like I'd be interested in getting you on board.
No way.
Yeah. He was like, I know you don't
How
have
about
any
that?
experience in it, but like we'd pay for your training and your
Yeah.
courses and whatever. Like we need the help.
Wow.
And so Christy was like, yeah, let's do it.
That's crazy.
So not only did I have a new job that was paying me more,
Yeah.
Christy now had a new job that was paying her way more than subbing.
Yeah. Just like
Obviously.
that.
Yeah. And it was crazy, just like that. And so we were there for 4th of July weekend. And I think it was actually on the 4th of July. We took a little bit of break and we did like a store run or whatever. And we were just driving around the town and we saw a house that was for sale by owner. And we were like, this is a cute neighborhood. Why not? I mean, we could at least call and ask. So I called the guy and I was like, hey, I see your house is for sale by owner and, we'd be interested. And I just gave him the story. I said, this is what I've done. I went to Bible school. I'm moving here for an IT job. We're from Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Like I just gave him the whole story and he was like, yeah, that's really cool. Please let me know when you can come take a look at it. And I was like, well, we can't. Like we're back in Pennsylvania now at this point by the time he called me back. And he was like, but I'll tell you what, I told him, I'll tell you what, let me see if my friend can come over. I said, I trust him. He's like my brother.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can get him to come over. We've obviously seen all the pictures from your listing, but let me see if I can get him to come over and I'll just let him be my eyes.
Right.
So he took a look at everything. And after it was all said and done, he was like, I could see you guys living here. Like this is nice.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, I trust you. So we offered, I said, obviously contingent on our house selling in Pennsylvania and whatever. But they took it and it was amazing.
Sight unseen, bought a house.
Pretty much. I mean, we had driven past it. We had seen the neighborhood. We hadn't been inside of it. Right.
Jeez.
Until closer to closing.
Yeah.
But I trusted my friend and it was what it was. And so we were out there for another weekend for something, I think, to do some of the closing, or I forget exactly. Maybe I had already moved out there because my job started in August, but our house in Pennsylvania didn't sell until September-ish.
Okay.
And the house in Indiana wasn't closing until September-ish.
Okay.
So we had the dog and Christy was taking care of stuff. I had to start in August. So I actually moved out to Indiana in August and lived with my buddy for close to a month. So that way I could start working.
Yeah.
And then Christy moved out whenever everything else happened. So I was out there and I got to like meet the owner and stuff like that. But anyway, he came back and he told me, he was like, I wanted to honor, you coming in and offering this first, but like we did have other people come in and offer us cash.
Jeez.
Like right now and like over asking price.
Really?
And he was like, I just felt like I needed to do this for you.
Huh. How about that?
And it was just
a man of his word.
I know. It was just amazing. And to this day, like there were things about the house that like, obviously I weren't like my dream house, but, to this day, like now, living in an apartment again, I'm like, dang, I miss that house.
Yeah.
Like that was a great place to live for the 2 years that we were there. So yeah, it was really good.
That's awesome to see how God once again opened up a way, provided for you, made some things happen.
Well, so, and I didn't even mention this, but the whole Colorado story, me working at that school district. Yeah. I told you, I swear that guy, and if he watches this, he's not going to like confirm it, but I tell you, he called me back on a Saturday or Sunday and offered me that job at that school district. Yeah. And I told you, I got hired, went in for the interview on Monday, got hired on Tuesday and started on Wednesday. He tells me that he doesn't remember it being a Saturday or Sunday, whatever, not a big deal. I asked him probably 3 or 4 months in why he hired me. Yeah. Having no IT experience, just what I taught myself.
Right.
I said, I know that there are qualified, like more qualified people that you
Yeah.
hired. Like we've talked about it, and I was here, like you were interviewing other people the same day.
Right.
There was someone before me and someone after me. And he's like, Zach, I went home and I prayed about it, and
No way.
the Lord told me to hire you.
Wow.
And I was just like,
That's
thank
amazing.
you.
Wow, that's cool.
It's just how the Lord provides
Yep.
when you get out of your own way.
Get out of your own way, man.
It's just amazing.
It's amazing. And how he brings other Christian men into your life.
Yes.
Who just for whatever reason, seek the Lord. That's cool.
My boss at the time ended up becoming like another dad to me while we were out there.
Uh-huh.
I mean, we didn't really know anybody, anything. We got to be friends with some people in our apartment complex and people from the Bible school.
Mm-hmm.
And Pastor Matt was out there at the same time. So we got to, be around some people that we knew. But, my family was always a bigger family. We grew up always having Sunday dinners together. We would always be together at least once a week. So to leave all of that, be in an unfamiliar place, it was just different. And then to be constantly on the go, you just feel like you have no real time or no real connection for anything.
Yeah.
Well, my boss and I ended up becoming like really good friends. Like I said, him and his wife ended up becoming like another set of parents to me and Christy while we were out there. We'd go over and have dinners at their place. Not necessarily once a week, but it got to be pretty close to that. And they were obviously Christians, and we'd be able to just pray together and hang out and just do some things. And it was really nice.
That's awesome.
So yeah, I mean, it's not always God said, God said. Yes, that can happen. 100%. Believe in that with my whole heart.
Yeah.
But there is a complete other side to this of just following the peace that you know that you have, because the Lord speaks to you too. He doesn't have to always speak through somebody else.
Amen. Amen.
It doesn't always sound like that audible voice. It doesn't always, here's what you need to do, Zach.
Yeah.
It's, you know what? I feel this. And as long as it lines up with the word, as long as it's something good that's furthering the kingdom in some way, shape, or form, sometimes it's taking a step of faith and moving halfway across the country. I've done it twice. I mean, Indiana is not halfway across the country, but
yeah, you were getting there though.
Right. So Colorado was literally halfway.
Yeah.
And then moving back. And each time it's been a step of faith. I mean, I'd never thought growing up, I mean, I was only 20 whenever we got married and moved, but I never thought growing up that I'd leave Pennsylvania. And then we moved to Colorado out there for a year, and we moved back. It was a step of faith to move back. What's waiting for us? I know our family's here, but like we've grown so much in this year out here. Do we want to go back to, no offense to the family that watches this, but like, do we want to go back to being so close to family? We knew what that life was like before. What does God have for us now?
Yeah.
Do we want to get back into that? What boundaries might we have to set? And what's going to look different being there? Is it going to be worse being there and setting boundaries than it was with the distance? You know what I mean? And having like an actual natural boundary. But like every step of the way, God took care of it. And to this day, like I still get in my head and I still want to bash my head off a wall at some things that I don't understand.
Yeah.
But it's just like, why do I worry about it? Like the Lord will take care of it.
It
doesn't matter what it looks like. The Lord will take care of it.
Like you were saying, people need to get out of their own way and do their own thing. Or they'll say, or like they need like an audible experience. And so many people have asked me, they're like, when did you feel the call to go to Bible school? Or when did you hear and it's like, I actually didn't. There wasn't like a audible, like, you need to go here. This is happening.
Right.
It was literally me wrestling constantly of, what do I do? What do I do? Should I sit here and let this opportunity go by, or should I just do it? And it's just another perfect example of like God moving with the movers. I went, just did it, figured it out, and then I let God direct my path.
Right. And I think people forget that there's grace for that. Like,
You acknowledge him and he directs your path.
Right.
Like the word says.
Right. Like, and some of it too is like, there is a natural side of things.
Uh-huh.
You can't get so stuck in the supernatural waiting for God to do something
Uh-huh.
that you're too afraid to move and make a mistake.
Yeah, because then you won't do
There
anything.
are times, and I don't know that this is completely biblical, but there are times that I feel like God will honor a mistake with the right heart attitude
Mm-hmm.
than he will if you just sit and do nothing.
Yep, absolutely.
So why not
Gives
take
grace
that
to the
chance?
humble.
Why not take that chance?
Mm-hmm.
You don't know what's on the other end of it.
That's right.
If it's something that you feel like you need to do
Mm-hmm.
that aligns with the word,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
don't go
Yep.
kill anybody.
Yep.
But as long as it's in line with the word and it's
Mm-hmm.
something that's going to further the kingdom in some way, some way, somehow,
Mm-hmm.
or if it's going to develop you professionally for something that you feel like God's called you to,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you got to take the step of faith.
Yeah, look at your own experience, like you even just went through. All your experiences, your Bible college, you're working for a school district, you've experienced working for a business, you've experienced working for a church. You
Right.
nailed all three.
Right.
Now you have the opportunity to go work, do your own thing.
Right. Right.
Which is so cool to see.
And then 2020, what was that? 2023, I believe.
Yeah.
Is whenever I felt like the Lord told me. I had seen other businesses do it. And I
Yeah.
had been a part of organizations. I had been in IT for 8 years at the time. I think it was a total of 8 years at the time. Maybe it was only 7, but it was at the point to where I felt like the Lord said, start an IT business and I'm going to show you how to do it.
Wow.
And I need you to do it the way that I need you to do it because I have people that need taken care of. And I'm like, okay, sounds good.
Wow.
So in 2023, I started my own IT business and it didn't take off.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, some of that was, I felt like
I
the
didn't
Lord,
realize that 2023.
the Lord said, do it and do it now. So
Yeah.
I formalized it and I did all the paperwork and started my LLC. And then I felt like the Lord said, okay, wait. I said, okay. So I got involved with the local ministry, started attending more and started volunteering more and ended up getting brought on full time for some things. And it didn't look exactly like what I had thought. You know, I didn't dive into IT stuff right away, which is okay. You know, I was open to it. I wasn't sure where the Lord was taking me with it. And I learned so much over the year and a half-ish that I was involved in that ministry. I mean, obviously I was still focusing on my business at the same time. And I started supporting other customers in the manufacturing industry and a couple other ministries and different things like that. So I was able to still grow what the Lord was calling me to do while also submitting to the vision of the ministry that I was involved in. And it was really cool to see just kind of how everything played out. But to this day, like I know that the Lord has used every step of faith that I had no idea what was gonna happen. He's used every single step, and I can look back on now and say, like, I would not have been able to do what I'm doing now, owning my own business, able to support not only like businesses, but be able to support churches, eventually be able to support school districts, like whatever that may look like, whatever I feel like he's calling me to do. There's this experience that I couldn't have aligned better myself. You know what I mean? Even if I were to have gone out and tried to find experiences like that, I know for a fact that because God paved the way for each one of those experiences, they were the perfect stepping stones that I needed to be able to provide the support for whomever that I'm supporting now.
Yeah.
And same thing. So involved in church for a long time, involved in schools for a long time. You get to see obviously differences on how those things are run. And then supporting businesses. Businesses are completely different ball games than schools, completely different ball games than churches. You can run a church like a business and you can run businesses, you know, as a ministry and different things like that. But there's different ways that things work. And like just being able to see how all of it works has kind of like, I don't want to say made me like a specialist in it, but growing up in the church and being able to support, ministries has really given me this upper hand, I'd say, at being able to see how a ministry needs to be supported. And I feel like that's been the goal all along. Like, I never really verbalized it whenever I was younger, but whenever I was somewhere along the journey attending our church back in Greensburg, I really felt like the Lord gave me this vision of owning some type of consulting business or owning some type of support-based business where I'd be able to help ministries go in, set up what they need to set up, consult with them, teach people that are on their teams how to do what they need to do, and just like be there and fulfill God's vision for those churches that might not have that expertise themselves. And sometimes it's not even a matter of like whether you have an expert to do it. I mean, the business that I run is more IT based than it is like media production based. So, computers, networking, that type of stuff is like what I'm more familiar with. But the experience that I got from the ministry that I was involved in, gave me a ton of the broadcasting or media or production experience enough to where I'm able to help support those things in a church now where I never would have been able to do that before.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say that I'm an expert in it, but for someone who doesn't have, that's right. For someone who doesn't have, somebody that they can fully rely on to do that, I'm, able to provide those types of services. And sometimes even just seeing things from a different perspective, having this, I don't want to call it like experience because I'm bragging, but having this well-rounded, like I've seen so many different applications of how to do this that like it's, I might walk into some place and see how they're doing it and be able to offer a different suggestion or a different idea on how to approach it. Just because I've seen it in different industries, sometimes the, enterprise way to do it isn't how you would think to do it in a small business environment, but sometimes that's what's needed, or sometimes that's what works, or vice versa. You walk into an enterprise environment and people are overcomplicating the problem. And it's like, well, why don't you just do this? Yeah. It's like, you're able to then money. You're able to really like customize approaches and give, whatever that organization is, the specific support that they need instead of just like a one size fits all. Oh, you have to do this because that's all that our business is going to support. Like, I don't do that. Maybe eventually it would get to a point like that, but
Name of your business?
Shorelight Technologies.
Shorelight Technologies.
Yep.
I like it. You told me earlier you prayed about that name for a long time.
I did. And so obviously Shore is because part of my name is in the name. Croushore.
Say it again.
What, Croushore?
Your last name, yeah.
Zach Croushore.
Because for a lot of times
Shore, like the ocean shore.
Yeah. But for a lot of times I wasn't sure if I was saying it right or wrong. Yeah. Croushore. You probably get that a lot, but Croushore. Okay, so Shore.
So Shorelight Technologies. Yep. So that was part of it. And then I just really felt like I obviously knew that the Lord was calling me to do it. And I was just really praying about what the whole thing was. And John 1:5 just kept coming to my mind about everything, and I'd look it up and I'd look at it in different translations. But the easiest way to say it is that the light will overcome the darkness, and the darkness will be extinguished. It's the best way to phrase it. And so I was like, you know what, that makes a lot of sense. So I came up with Shorelight. I found out after the fact that there's apparently some education-based business that has the actual name Shorelight, but it's not, as far as I'm aware, it's not trademarked or copyrighted or whatever.
Did they take the domain website?
But they took shorelight.com, but mine's shorelight.tech because it's Shorelight Technologies. But I mean, who knows? The Lord might open that up someday.
Might buy it from someday.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Who knows? We'll be Industries instead of LLC or something.
Amen. That's right.
But But yeah,
Shorelight Technologies is the name. I didn't know that's the story about how it came about.
Yeah.
Been in business since 2023.
Yep,
You
2023.
specialize in IT help.
IT help for really anybody that needs it.
Churches, businesses, schools.
Yep. Right now it's still a small team as I'm growing. I mean, I just recently went into full time for myself.
Yeah.
Probably February of this year. It was the next step
Which is
that I
awesome.
knew needed to happen. And it was just, it's just really cool to see how God's paved the way for it. There's things coming up that I'm looking forward to growth.
Yeah.
And obviously, yeah, I mean, if anybody needs any help,
Yeah.
hit me up.
Yeah. We'll put your website and your all your info on this. The title, part of the title is unscripted. So I just think it's interesting how everything you talked about completely unscripted. Right? That's led you to this point. You
can probably tell by the way we pieced this whole thing together.
I know, we jumped around. But that's the whole purpose of like exactly why I wanted to do what we're doing. I want to highlight men, strong Christian men who have been living for the Lord, who've trusted in the Lord. They're since whatever age or whatever point in their life, who have tried to maybe plan it or go this way or that way, but God directs your path. Yeah. It's unscripted. You Absolutely. Don't know where you might not know nine, like a guy I was talking to today. He was like, I don't know the next 9 steps. I might know the next 2 steps. I want to know the next 9 steps, but I only know the next 2 steps. Right. But the Lord's going to direct each one of those, and then he's going to bring you to.
And the remaining steps always have to do with being obedient in the first steps.
Amen. That's right. And here
sometimes it's terrifying.
It is. Sure is. Terrifying starting a podcast that you don't know what you're doing.
Praise God.
But then you find a good friend that knows media and tech that can help you out. So I think you kind of already answered this, but where you're going in the future is to continue to help serve people in the IT world. Am I right?
Yep. Yeah. I mean, my heart behind this, like I said, whenever the Lord told me to start this business, it was very clear that he had certain people in mind that I would need to support along the way. Yeah. I don't know who all those people are yet. Yeah. Obviously my business is still growing and figuring itself out. There's obviously people that are going to be in, the secular world that I'm just supporting businesses just because, we're good at what we do. But, the passion behind it is to make sure that ministries and Christian businesses and, whomever have the proper support that they need, and have it from someone or a company that believes like you do, like-minded things, and is standing in faith with you to support your vision. Support, technology support in any fashion should be something that comes alongside you and partners with you to fulfill the vision that you have, not something that's a hindrance or not something that's like,
holding you back from accomplishing
something that's
your
holding
goal.
you back, or even, just who do you trust?
It's a daunting task.
It's easier to, I know that, Christians obviously give themselves bad names, and you never know like who's who and who's the wolf in sheep's clothing. Yeah. But I feel like, being able to put myself out there as a faith-based business and being able to say like, hey, I pride myself in integrity and my faith, and making sure that, things are transparent and you're getting the direct service that you need. Like, I feel like that says something, maybe not to everyone, but it says it to the people who need it. Yeah. And that's the purpose of this.
Exactly. And the purpose, and another purpose as you're talking, and why I want to do exactly this, because if you have plumbers, IT guys, real estate agents, pastors, you have all these men out there who are in certain industries, certain fields, who have integrity like yourself, who genuinely care about, like you said, finding just the people who are out there with a good heart. It's like, why not highlight these guys, hear their story, find out where they're from, showcase their character, and then, talk about where you're going.
Yeah.
That's really cool. That's awesome. Well, any final thoughts?
I don't think so. I
No?
feel like I did a lot of talking on this podcast, so
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed hearing the story.
thank you.
Yeah.
Not that I wrote any of it myself, but praise God.
Nope. But hopefully somebody will be able to listen to this and be encouraged and,
Amen.
go from there.
I like it.
I like it a lot.
I'm looking forward to seeing how this podcast takes off.
Me too. Thanks for watching another episode of Steadfast Men Unscripted. If you could please like this video, comment, subscribe, share it with anybody who you think would listen or who would enjoy this show. That would greatly help me and help the success of this show. I want 3 main things to come from this show. I want the kingdom of God to advance. I want the testimonies of these men to encourage other men all around the world. And lastly, I want to promote each and every man that's on this show, whether they have a business or anything that they have going. I want them to be uplifted and promoted. So thank you again for watching, and we'll see you again next time.